Hello, welcome back to Rev Endurance Sports and another edition of What is in Our Stand Today. That is a series of videos that you can watch. There's a hashtag, What is in Our Stand Today. I use that across all social media platforms, so Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and of course now here on YouTube as well. But what we're going to do today is cut a carbon fork, and it's probably one of the scariest tasks that I have to accomplish here. So in this case, the customer gave me the measurements of where he wanted it to be cut. But in other cases, we might need, let's say, a mock fit to figure out where we're going to cut the carbon fork. And bike fitting should be a very important part of deciding where you're going to cut your fork. Now, I have some ideas about certain things about leaving forks at a good height, about 3 centimeters from the top of the headset cap. That way the bike is, in my opinion, still marketable. There's a lot of times if a fork has been cut, you now have limited the amount of people who would want to purchase your bike. So one of those things, there are some aesthetics, there are some things that people want to have their fork cut all the way down. They don't want the stovepipes, they don't want any of that stuff. But maybe you may want to think about resale value. So in this case, we are using a carbon specific cutting blade. And so the CSB-1 from Park Tool is a blade that should be used whenever you are cutting a carbon fork. I don't recall any time ever cutting a carbon fork without this blade, so I can't tell you how terrible it may come out, but I do know that that is what you should be using. And this little package that I was holding is basically where this blade came from. And I like to be able to use a carbon blade or replace a carbon blade fairly frequently. As a matter of fact, this is what the old blade that was in here came out. I don't know if you'll see how tore up that blade has gotten over the use. And if that doesn't focus in, then just take my word for it. It just looks really bad. And it's just carbon. And yet it was able to just really destroy this blade. Now, I try to replace these fairly frequently. And that is because as you start to cut it, carbon is, like let's say any carbon component, it's a bunch of layers of sheets of just fabric. And that fabric, you put glue, resin, and then you press it, you heat it, and then it becomes really hard. But in this case, if you're sawing, you'll see the fibers pretty much fray, if you will. And that's not a good thing. So what we're going to do now is we're going to cut the fork, and then I'm going to show you what I use to clean the fork so that it doesn't cut you or anything like that, and it just keeps it nice and clean when you hand it back to the customer, or if you're building a bike yourself. Okay, so now the scary part. But and oh, by the way, this particular guide is called the SG-7, and in this case, this is the 0.2 version of it. And you'll see it has 2 guides. This one's for the regular steel type blade, and this one here is for the carbon blade. It is much thicker, and it needs a much bigger guide. So this, as you can see, it's just not even going in. But this one has enough room to travel down, okay? Now, in my case, on my work stand, I have a floodlight or spotlight aiming directly into this guide. That way, this guide, or as the light shines through, I know exactly where it is. And if I may, I'm going to show you from my perspective what I'm seeing. So right here, you can see that channel, and you can see the shade that it is, or I'm sorry, the lighting that it's showing there. Okay, and so as I drop the blade in here, you should be able to see right where it's hitting. And there is a gray Sharpie mark right there. Okay, so let's get to cutting so we can get this job done. Okay, that's cut. And now I use this tool, and it's mainly a plumber's type tool. I just picked it up at Home Depot. And this has two different blades, or two different settings. So one is going to be to clean out the inside of the fork. And the other is going to be for the outside. Now, what I try to do is get this to where there are no burrs, nothing that could damage the fork later when it's going to be pressed in, because you're going to put a compression plug inside here so that you can do your headset adjustment. So you want to make sure that nothing is going to fray or come apart. So that's it. We've now cut a carbon fork. I did all the measuring, or not the measuring, but I did the due diligence of making sure I had the blade at the right spot. So that part wasn't my responsibility, or at least the measurement part wasn't my responsibility. I was just in charge of cutting it. So that's it. We're done. And if you found this video informative, educational, or entertaining, please like and subscribe. We do videos about once or twice a week, and some of them are maintenance focused. And actually, over the last couple of days, I posted some videos of us out riding our bikes, which is also fun stuff. Okay, thank you so much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. And in the meantime, we'll see you up the road.